Good afternoon to all of our guests here at the North American Bear Center and those of you tuning in online. It is just past 12:30, which means it's time for our Bear Enrichment broadcast. And given the point in the year and that we're staying open a week later than we have in the past 5 years, there's not a whole lot of bear activity down front. Holly and Lucky do have access, but they are very intent on being in their dens at the moment. And Tasha is kind of feeling the same way, although she does not have access to the main enclosure. So there are no bears down front at the moment. However, again, we're staying open later than we ever have in the past. Maybe not ever, but in the past few years. Typically, the third weekend in October or right around there is when we close our doors to the public. However, this year we tried to see what it would be like if we stay open a little bit later. The bears don't seem to mind all that much. They're still getting up for tours and saying hi to the folks that come and see them, which is great. And they are still eating at least a little bit of food at the moment. But as things get colder and the season winds and changes down and gets closer to winter, the bears are going to become really, really inactive. In fact, if you've been watching on the cams lately, you would see that all of them kind of look like they're moving in slow motion. That's their body adjusting all its metabolic processes to the degree they will need for their winter dormancy. So it's a little bit of a process that takes a while, but while that happens, the bears do look like they're moving in slow motion. Now today actually happens to be a rather nice fall day here in Ely. It's a little breezy and a little cool, but not too cold. The sun has been intermittently coming out, which we tend to start our days of not seeing the sun all that much from about this point in the year to about March. It gets real cloudy in Ely. Sun can be a rare thing, so soak up the vitamin D while you have the chance, because soon we won't have as many opportunities for it. Not only that, but we'll just have a lot less light. It's pretty much dark out at 7 o'clock in the morning. Nowadays, it's pretty dark. You can start to see the first parts of the light in the morning. But again, it's somewhat dark at that point. And then right now, around 6, a little after 6 o'clock, is sunset. So our days are really short. And for those of us living here as humans in this area, I've heard it commonly said, even by our guests that visit, that, man, 7 o'clock rolls around and it feels like 10 o'clock. It's so dark and just seems like it should be that point in your day. But again, this is the seasonal change we deal with every single year, but it just takes a little bit to get adjusted to. And actually, the bears, they don't use any of those things to determine when they're going to go into their winter dormancies. They actually use food availability and genetics are the two most important things in determining when a bear will go down for hibernation and when a bear will get up. And that is because that's what hibernation is an adaptation for. It's an adaptation for shortages in food, and specifically time periods where food is short or not available. So here in the Northland, in northern Minnesota, our bears hibernate or go into that winter dormancy for quite a long time. They may be in that winter dormancy for 6 to 7 months in this area. As you travel further south, east, and west, and the growing season changes, and the food per acre changes, and the timing of that food changes, you will see the hibernation patterns also change accordingly. So bears that, let's say, that live in northern Mexico, that is about the southern bound of where we see black bears, northern to central Mexico. And those bears, some of those bears actually might not even hibernate at all. Females do tend to hibernate even in areas where they do have food available to them year-round, simply as a spot to give birth to their offspring. They do like a more sheltered area to do that. Here in Minnesota, our bears are typically given birth in January, and they're with their offspring 4 months until in the den before they leave it in April. Whereas, again, bears in much more southern climates might not be in those dens with those offspring as long, simply because, again, they do have food available to them. And so the bears are typically only going to go down to those winter dormancies when food is unavailable. And so, again, in the northern reaches of Mexico and places like Louisiana and Florida where bears have decent food, if not good food, available to them almost year-round, they will choose not to hibernate, or they just won't hibernate. And that is because, again, they do have food available to them year-round. Consequently, a bear's genetics also play a huge part in that. So one of the best examples of that is our Tasha bear. Tasha is from Kentucky, and she is very in tune to the seasonal changes of Kentucky. And even though we brought Tasha a few hundred miles up north, and now she's lived here, and she has for the past 6 or more years, she still thinks she's in Kentucky. And she has shown no to little sign of actually adjusting to our seasonal change. And that is because it's in her genetics that tell her, hey, it's time to get up. It's springtime. But her genetics are from lines of bears that have always existed in the Kentucky area, or the general greater Kentucky area, the east central United States. That growing season is vastly different than our growing season here in the Northland. So that's the main reason she has such a struggle in this area. You would think, again, bears being as adaptable as they are, she could just, I'll just get up a month later, because Tasha does typically get up about a month earlier than the other two bears that we have here at the center, and she typically does go in a little later. However, this year she's pretty on par with our other two bears, which is something to note. In past years, she hasn't been quite as attuned to what they're going in terms of dates and times. So it's interesting to see this year that she is pretty similar, and that they all seem to be in kind of the same schedule in terms of when they'll stop coming out and they're done for the year. However, again, because she's a southern bear with southern genes, she thinks that growing climate or that growing season comes with her, and obviously it does not. And so we can't tell Tasha, hey, we moved you up north, you need to adjust, obviously. But we were hoping over time she would adjust. But again, she wakes up from her winter dormancy typically within 5 days that she woke up the year previous. And we typically get to notice that by footprints in the snow. And Tasha doesn't seem to enjoy that there's snow on the ground when she gets up. She seems to be confused. Now, we can't confirm that, but she just seems a little bit confused in that, where's all the food? And because, again, she would be expecting, if you were in Kentucky at that time, to wake up from your winter dormancy, you would have most likely food available to you in the wild. So she's a bit confused when she wakes up, and we're still well into winter. In fact, this past year, spring didn't spring or sprung until May. So it can take a while. It can go quite a bit. And there's some variance as well and other factors to consider. However, again, the main two most important that will determine dates and times of a bear getting up or going down for winter dormancy is genetics and food availability. And typically, food availability comes first. Now that the bears are going down, other animals are also preparing for their winters, or what they do in the winter. Typically, you have generally three things animals do to get through our Minnesota winter. You either migrate, because you can get out of it and go to where food exists still and is a much more easier climate to get your food, shelter, water, and stay alive. Or you hibernate. That's one of the other big ones. And as we know, although bears aren't necessarily considered true hibernators to some regard, they do go through a winter dormancy in a form of a torpor. But we do have other animals, a lot of them, that do hibernate around here. A lot of our ground-living rodents, such as chipmunks, they live in the ground, and woodchucks, they also live in the ground. The ground freezes in the winter, which obviously impedes their ability to do their normal activities of digging, and most of them are mostly vegetarians. They were technically probably omnivorous, as they can eat bugs and stuff as well as maybe some small animals or nibble on things here and there, but mostly vegetarians. They lose most of their main food sources during the winter time, so they also go into a true hibernation and will be gone or done for the whole winter. So we haven't seen the chipmunks running around. Now, we still see the red squirrels. They're quite bountiful, but they live in the trees. And the rodents that typically live in the trees do not need to hibernate, as they're able to still climb the trees and live inside them, where they typically do. And they are usually still able to get food. Either they cached it all summer long, so they have plenty of supplies through that winter dormancy, or they do have a way of getting food in the winter, which squirrels do. They can eat a lot of the seeds that some of the chipmunks wouldn't be able to do or not know about and how to get them as they do hibernate. So our red squirrels are still around. We're also seeing lots of blue jays, gray jays, and ravens. Part of that is due to migration. Blue jays are migrating, so our gray jays, they might not migrate out of Minnesota, but they all kind of move around for the winter and go to more ideal locations. So some of the ones we see might live north of us in their normal breeding season or summer season, but now they hang down here for their winter season because food is more plentiful, or for whatever reason they deem fit. We do see gray jays throughout the winter. We can see blue jays throughout the winter. It's not as common, and so some of them are on their migration down, and others are at their migration, or where they stop and they'll be wintering here. And then the third reason, or the third way animals survive the winter here, is they are adapted for it. So basically, they deal with it. They've gone through evolutionary pressure and other pressures that allow them to live in our cold, harsh, long winter. An example of that would be a moose or a wolf. Their large feet help them stay on top of the snow. They don't get caught up in deep snow years where they sink in. Same with a lynx, also have very large snowshoe-like feet that allows them to move around in the snow. wolf and lynx are able to catch their food items in the wintertime, such as rabbits and deer and whatnot, because those animals are all adapted as well. So their food's there, they can still find shelter, and they do find ways to get water as well. So some animals are adapted for it. So we're starting to see the culmination of that and what animals are disappearing because they hibernate or because they leave, and then the animals that stick around, we're seeing them as well. So lots of transitions happening here at the center at the moment in terms of the wildlife that comes and goes on a regular basis. And as I'm talking, we do have a gray jay right down front in front of me hopping around looking for scraps. We have blue jays flying around looking for scraps. We have chickadees looking for scraps. I think our chickadees, blue jays, and gray jays, and even there's a woodpecker as well. Looks like to be a downy woodpecker, and some nuthatches and squirrels. I think we have some of the world's fattest, as they do get all the scraps that the bears do not get. So the critters here are also fed and taken care of rather well, not on purpose, but by incident. Again, you can see them all. They even go to the exact spots we feed the bears. We have a nuthatch checking out the bear feeder, the bear scale, and specifically it goes right to where we put the food every time and checks it out because it knows that's where food has been found in the past. So they all kind of look at the same spots because they know where the stuff is, and they know where they've got it in the past. So when we put out spreads and stuff for the bears, sometimes the other critters get there before the bears do. Time of year and other things also play a part in that. But we see lots of critters running around with apricots, which obviously they're not finding naturally here in Minnesota. Apricots is one of the things we feed the bears. They are rather fond of them, but again, so are the other critters. We're also seeing lots of ravens now. As food starts to dwindle in the wild, the ravens are also aware, just like some of our smaller critters, of where good food can be found, and it is typical to have good food found around the Bear Center. This broadcast also comes to you with a little bit of a somber note, as it happens to be our last true bear broadcast program for the year. As again, I mentioned before, we are winding down for the year. We will be closing to the public, Saturday being our last day, this coming Saturday being open to the general public. So it is a little bit somber in that this is the last broadcast of 2023 in terms of our regular bear broadcast. We still have some other broadcasts will be coming to you live for special events, like Give to the Max Day, which is just around the corner as well. So don't forget to check our website and our Facebook for updates on that. We'll be coming to you live next week in regards to things about that. But again, this is the last bear broadcast of the year. So again, thank you to everyone who's been paying attention this whole summer. We have a whole team of people that make these programs happen, including our volunteers, our pond chat moderators, and camera drivers. It's not just us here at the Bear Center. We have people far and away and close by that help run those things and make sure this program can go off so that people that tune in to check out what the Bears do at this program or what's going on at the Bear Center, they can just enjoy from the comfort of their home. So let's extend a quick thank you to all of those behind the scenes that help us get these programs done. We've had a lot of awesome enrichments and bear broadcasts this year, and we couldn't do it without those folks behind the scenes that help us with that stuff. And let's also extend a thank you to our interns who also did a fabulous job this year running the broadcasts and the other programs throughout the year. Especially this year with the fencing project, it was not easy because the feature of this program is having bears down front to see, and it can be difficult to do that when they're in their pens and not being allowed to roam the enclosure because construction workers don't like to work alongside the bears for whatever reason. So again, with all the twists and turns that came with that, and we were still able to get our team of volunteers, interns, and staff to get this program to go off without a hitch. That's awesome. So thank you to all of those that had a hand in that. We really appreciate it. And lastly, one thing before I leave, I just want to extend a special thank you to Marge. Marge, if you're listening today, I received something from you, and it was most nice of you to send that. I super appreciate that. I just wanted to send a special thank you on the broadcast to Marge. She knows what I'm talking about, but thank you so much, Marge. We appreciate you. She is also one of our pond chatters and camera drivers and moderators. So Marge, if you're listening, thank you so much. I received your gift yesterday. It was awesome. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. And thanks for being a part of our group, Marge. We appreciate that as well. But then, again, thank you to everyone that helps make these things go off. We're super appreciative. We're closing the door here soon on the 2023 year, or the open season here at the North American Bear Center. And, again, as I mentioned, it's a little bit somber as it's sad to say goodbye to another year, but we're ready to go for 2024. We have some things to look forward to and some things to get ready for. So we're excited for an off season of planning and positioning us for the future. Should be exciting stuff as usual come the springtime. So Thank you, folks, here at the center today. Thank you so much for being here and part of our last week of operation. Thank you, folks, tuning in online and making our online programs a hit. We do appreciate your attendance and your support from far and away. And thanks to everybody who helped make these programs possible over the course of the year. We are super appreciative, and we know we couldn't do these things without you. So, again, thank you so much for your support and your willingness to support the North American Bear Center. From all of us here at the North American Bear Center, we hope everyone has a great rest of Wednesday. And the next Bear broadcast won't be until 2024, but again, stay tuned for more updates and special event broadcasts coming to you live from the North American Bear Center in the coming days and weeks. So everybody have a great Wednesday and take care, and we will see you next year for our Bear broadcast program.